Hey review family, keep it tight. My name is Jay Morse, the review guy, reviewing music for the love of music, and I'm back again to bring you another video. And in this one, I just want to rant a little bit about a topic that I have briefly touched upon in the past, but sort of want to delve a little bit more into and get some of your guys' opinions on it. Brutal doesn't mean you're good. Heavy does not mean you're good. Breakdowns and extreme technicality does not mean you're good. Are these true points? What are your opinions of these points? Because I hear so many people immediately equate and form a sort of false equivalency that if you are super over the top with insane breakdowns and insane vocals and brutalness, that it is going to inherently make you a better band. I can assure you, I've heard many slam metal bands, brutal death metal bands, porno grind bands, gore grind bands, grindcore bands, black metal bands that could qualify as being very brutal, very over the top, but are still shit, cannot stand on their own 2 feet, have nothing to set themselves apart. So the fact that people are like, brutal makes a record good or bad, that argument point for reviewing and for critiquing and for talking about something, I get why people do it. I do it too. The determining factor for a lot of stuff can be how heavy it is, how brutal it is, especially if it's something that the band specifically specializes in, if it's something that means a lot to the overall construction of an album or a band. But going into a record and judging it based on how heavy it is not only very shallow, but sort of exposes the fact that there's really nothing else to point at the band being different or the band being diverse in some way that makes it an interesting listen. If all you have to say about it is, I bang my head, it's really heavy, it's really brutal, then I feel like that band's failing on some fronts to not really give you more to talk about than just, holy shit, it's heavy. And it makes me sad because I see a lot of bands and artists and albums get very overhyped, but other bands that do a lot more in the way of making themselves different in some form or another, but still being brutal, still being heavy, finding that good middle ground, just completely swept under the rug. And that's unfortunate because I feel like those are the types of bands that deserve a lot more credit, that deserve a lot more people looking at them, because you can do both. You can be experimental or you can be technical, but you can also be brutal or heavy. Now, I'm not going to say that sometimes you don't want that heavy experience. That's why a lot of people are attracted to the brutal death metal scene. That's why a lot of people are attracted to the newer bands that are playing old school death metal, the 20-buck spin type bands that are very murky and dingy and low and have a production that feels a lot like the old days. They aren't technical. They're very in line with, say, like a Cannibal Corpse, very cookie cutter, and Cannibal Corpse is kind of a good example of that point of being very cookie cutter and what would be considered quote unquote one-dimensional. It doesn't necessarily mean they're a bad band. Being basic, being simple, being minimalistic doesn't inherently make you a bad band or a bad artist. I really want to emphasize that and highlight that. But it's the people that just, if something is heavy, if something has a breakdown or if something has a heavy ass riff, people immediately equate that to it being good. And I just personally disagree with that sentiment. And not to mention, in heavy metal, in many different genres, some of the most standout releases of each year and some of the ones I enjoy the most are the ones that have very atmospheric elements, very progressive elements, very melodic and harmonious elements, ones that could be considered heavy but aren't really inherently brutal, and those are sometimes the ones that are the best of the best. When bands can tone it down a little bit and do something cool, maybe do a ballad or do something slower or more atmospheric, those are sometimes some of the most standout tracks and moments on an album from a brutal band. But I want to know your guys' opinion of this topic. Do you equate your enjoyment of a record to how heavy it is or how brutal it is? And if you do, why? Definitely let me know. I'd love to hear your opinions on this topic. Definitely let me know down below. Be sure to like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to join the review family today, and smash that notification bell to be notified of my future uploads. You know who it is. My name is Jay Morse, the review guy, and I'm signing off saying farewell.